Good evening, everybody. My name is Killian Stokes from Moyee, and I know I have the graveyard shift. I'm mostly going to talk about...
Well, you bought chocolate, so you're allowed. It's fine.
So I'm going to give these out. You guys feel free to open them and do...
Sorry guys, they might have won already just because of the chocolate. I'm just kidding.
There's 2 bars in each, so
No bribery, I promise.
I think you should be able to share them. But they are blockchain-enabled bars of chocolate. It's called The Other Bar. We're launching. It's an experiment we're running with the UNDP to empower consumers to be part of the solution for cocoa farmers. But yeah, most of what I'm going to talk about today is around coffee. And before I begin, it's a stat you might have heard already today, but I just think it's always worth remembering is on planet Earth, we are 7.5 billion eaters, we are 1.5 billion farmers, and just 300 companies that control our global food supply chains. And of those farmers, 1.5 billion farmers who work every day to put food on our tables 3 times a day, 1 in 3 of those farmers and their families go to bed hungry. So the business model that we've been working off, capitalism, the last 100 years, the model has put the power in the hands of those 300 brands and those supermarkets, and they have been able to pay the farmers less than a living wage. So in the case of coffee, probably 1%, if you buy a bag of coffee in the supermarket, 1% of what you pay would go back to the farmer. In the case of chocolate, it's about 2%. And when you pay somebody so little that they can't afford a living wage, that's when they start hiring children. So in the case of chocolate, you've 3 million children trafficked into the cocoa industry. So yeah, that's kind of the stats, and that, if you like, is the challenge that we're trying to tackle at Moyee. We're a B Corp. Our purpose is to give farmers a living wage and channel industrialization back into the coffee belt, and to so that more value is shared there, and to stop coffee from destroying the environment. That would probably be 3 simple things. As you might well be aware, coffee is the second most traded commodity on the planet after oil, more valuable than gold. It's worth $100 billion, and there are 100 million coffee farmers. That's about 1 in 60 human beings. So maybe one of us in the room is the 60 of us here. 90% of those farmers, as I mentioned, live on less than $2 a day. So yeah, even though it's worth so much money, the money is not trickling down to the folks who put in most of the work for our daily brew. And this is part of the challenge. All coffee in the world is grown in and around the equator. You've got Brazil, Colombia, you've got India, you've got Ethiopia, the home of coffee, the birthplace of coffee, Kenya, Indonesia. So that's where those 100 million people live, their farmers and their children. It's actually also the same belt where cocoa, there's about 25 million farmers and families living, reliant on cocoa in that same belt. The challenge with both of these industries really is where all of the value, they're exported as raw commodities, all of the value add, it gets exported to the West, and so a roasted bean is worth 7 times what a raw green bean would be. So we're trying to flip that around as a business with Moyee. We're working off the fair chain principles of shared value. So we want to see 50% of the value from your bag of coffee going back to the country of origin. That's why we invested in a roastery, and that's bean to bag in Ethiopia. So we want to see more of the values stay in the coffee belt. We want to promote trade over aid, and what's really important is quality, not poverty. So our coffee, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to taste it with you guys, but certainly you can buy online. Our coffee is rated in the top 5% of companies. It's a really amazing, tasty coffee, and that is what keeps our customers coming back again and again. We have 3 markets. We sell kind of online. We're starting to get into retail, and that one you're developing a new bag that will be blockchain enabled. But our main market at the moment is coffee at work. What we've realized is we all drink about 21 cups of coffee a week, and we drink 15 of those when we're in the office. So lots of fancy companies like this beautiful law firm outside, and Facebooks and Googles, and a lot of legal companies and tech companies will provide their staff with nice fancy machines and constant supply of caffeine. So yeah, we are absolutely involved in keeping you guys addicted to caffeine. I'm hands up on that one. So yeah, in terms of that's some of the examples of the roasteries I mentioned there. Our goal is bean to bag. So we have a roastery in Ethiopia. We're also roasting with a partner in Kenya, but we want to expand as we grow our range of coffees to to be opening more roasteries across the belt. Where blockchain comes in here is we want to provide consumers with full transparency. So at the moment we're still I suppose building our platforms out and trialing. Like I said, this chocolate here is trial, but if you look at on your phones, you might be able to look at blockchain.fairchain.org, and you'll see that we actually sorry, I always get that one wrong. Yes, it is blockchain.fairchain.org, and you'll see we hosted every single payment that we made in the coffee harvest of 2017. This is a sample of it, so it shows one of our farmers. We have about 450 farmers around our washing station. We paid him 11 euro, which is the top end of the market price, added a 20% bonus. That's still pennies, that's still pittance. And so we describe ourselves as being the world's least unfair coffee company, because we're still not paying our folks enough. And I'll touch on that in a second. One thing, our coffee is all grown in the forest, not in the field. Too often we read about coffee and how climate change is affecting our coffee supply. The problem is actually the reverse. Coffee is causing climate change. Coffee farmers and the coffee industry is chopping down native forests, particularly in a problem in Ethiopia where we are, because farmers either need to clear the forest and grow more coffee or grow alternative crops like rice and so forth, or for the charcoal. And again, if the people who live in these fragile environments are so poor they can't feed their families, they're not going to respect their local, they will burn the forests. So ours is grown in a forest, and that is something that we're using with blockchain from a provenance point of view. We want to promote, and we're looking in the future at getting satellites and photography involved, so that when you pick up a bag of coffee in the supermarket or you go to the machine, you can see where it's coming from. You can see the location of the washing station and that there is a forest there. Which I don't have it here, but I kind of take even Google Earth. You can see where our washing station is, and then I'm like, that's where all the farmers are. And we're now using technology and blockchain right down to the farm level, so precision farming. We want you to be able to see both the economic path of your coffee, who got paid what, from the farmer to Killian to Mr. Tesco or whatever, everybody in the supply chain, including the transport people, and also show you where the carbon was added. That just relates to the living wage living income for farmers. We've split it into Moyee is the business, and the Fairchain Foundation is building the platform, so we're going for philanthropic funds for that. That's the full value chain. If we got all the money we needed, these are all the changes we would do at every stage in the value chain, and how they relate to the SDGs. And so really, as I say, is that there you're seeing is the value chain of coffee. We're simplifying it from typically 15 stages to about 7, but you can see that relevant to coffee, chocolate, cotton, tea, precious metals, copper, as we saw earlier on, a whole host of value chains, and changing them so that we can see the farmers and the producers and fishermen involved in those value chains earning a living wage. And I can probably say, I'm sure you're going to bring it, but I can explain to you about blockchain tokens and how. Right. 1 minute? Okay, one very quickly. So the idea is, you the consumer, before you open buy your product, you get to use the blockchain to go, okay, how much who's getting paid what for this? I'm in Tesco, how much is this dude, Killian and Shane, getting out of this? How much is the farmer getting? How much is everybody involved? So once you see that, that's fine. Once you purchase the product, so at that stage we can show you the farmer is getting a definite X per X, show you full transparency. But then once you purchase the product, as these ladies would pretend, you all owe me €2 each, inside there is a blockchain token. That's giving you 25 cents back, which you can use, you can send down the value chain to support the farmers. Now what we've learned is you can support the farmers in one of 3 ways. Economically, so straight down for seeds and tools and loans and credit, etc. But economics alone doesn't end poverty. We need to protect the environment, so you might send your money down to plant trees or to support vaccines and clean water and social NGO projects at the community level. So, thank you.
You've got loads of them. I'm prepared. Sharon, go on, you kick off.
So you talked about a lot of aspects of the supply chain. My question is just quite basic, is which part of the supply chain do you think that blockchain is going to have the most impact?
Well, I would hope at the very beginning it's supply chain, in terms of farmers and the environment. The SDGs, I hope that's where, I think we're going to see as those 300 companies not to be rude about it, but maybe they're dinosaurs. Either they're going to change their business model and share the wealth more fairly with everybody, including the environment, in the value chain, or they will be replaced by new companies that will do that, and consumers will march at their feet and they will support more ethical companies that are where they can get involved. So I think what excites me about blockchain is that us 1 billion in the West who are enjoying all the fruits of this planet can start to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. We can start to channel a greater portion of our purchasing price. We can control our purchasing price a bit more and send some of that down to address the imbalances and the external costs that we are creating by our consumption. So I'm confident that bottom billion and the environment, that blockchain is a huge part to improve that segment.
Erica, off you.
The chocolate's very good.
Oh,
Yeah, it's delicious.
You're welcome. I hope these guys got some.
My
No, sorry.
Oh, actually, I only
Too
see
late.
people who can vote. Sorry.
question is, you said your chocolate or coffee is the least unfair.
Yes.
What difference would it make to the final end sale of prices of coffee if you were to pay farmers enough that there's no risk of damaging forest or anything at all?
At the moment, our farmers getting $400. We're getting them up to about $480, but this is the shortfall. The living wage for farmers is €1,050, where they are.
And
So
what, I guess, of the total £7 or so that you said you charge for coffee?
essentially, if you the money we want you as a consumer to be able to send back there is coming out of our So our mindset is, let's not pay George Clooney a lot of money, let's give the consumers 25 cents each, or a percentage per cup or per bag. And the idea, the hope is, you like the experience enough, you think it's pretty cool, that's connecting you with the farmer, that you go, okay, and it tastes amazing, I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to keep going on. So it's really turning the marketing budget into a budget that can change things. It does mean we're living, and right now, the last 3 years I've experienced it, our business model, we're living in a much tighter margin to pay our bills. We're not getting the huge markups that some of our giant competitors have at their disposal. But we're still not, and because we're still small, we're still not in the position to jump right up and increase, give those people a living wage tomorrow. We can't do that by our basic economics. There's a whole debate, that's a good kind of over beers. Well, if we give people double their income, are they just going to go and drink it? How can we get it into the hands of the mothers? One of the things when we were talking about digitizing this was we wanted to digital payments at the farm level. And when we were saying that about paying people on their mobile phones, the women were saying, no. I own the coffee around the house. He owns the mobile phone in the home. There's no way you're paying him for my coffee. So I think at both the front end and the last end, the challenges we have are the first mile and last mile. You have technology and you have culture. And in both consumers and farmers, we need to change those two things.
Anyone else? We're good.
With the chocolate. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.
Thanks.